So real quick, who am I and why am I talking to you? So Treehouse has been around for 8 years. We've got about 85 employees. We've raised about 14 million, and we're now profitable and sustainable. We've taught 850,000 adults how to code, and now we're working with big companies like Acquia, Airbnb, MailChimp, Nike, etc. to help them create a diverse team. So I think the question is, like, why is a white guy up here talking to you about how to create a diverse team? So I'm going to tell you a story. So I'm going to tell you a story about this group of people. So just bear with me, sit back. It's going to be story time for about 10 minutes. And then I'd love to take a couple questions if I can. So this is a group of amazing individuals that came out of the Boys and Girls Club in Atlanta. So I'm going to tell their story, how they ended up being engineers at MailChimp. But let me walk back in time to 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, I signed something called the Diversity Pledge in Portland, Oregon, that said I care about creating an inclusive, diverse culture. And you're probably wondering, like, what does this have to do with profit or retention or anything like that? I'm going to get to that, but that's really something that you get as a bonus to creating an amazing team that's diverse. So what happened was, 2 years ago I signed this pledge and said, you know, I'm a CEO, I believe in creating an inclusive, diverse company, of course. And I signed it, and then I looked at my own company. So at that point, Treehouse had about 80 to 85 employees, and most of them were white men. And that was pretty brutal to realize that I was no different than the CEOs in Silicon Valley who have built companies that are mostly white men. So if I believe in this stuff and I care, then why did I build a company like everybody else? What happened? And so I actually decided to take a whole year and learn. So I was running Treehouse, but on the side I basically was doing a big research project, and I interviewed over 50 underrepresented engineers in tech. I read amazing books, including The New Jim Crow. I listened to podcasts. One was called Seeing White. I watched 13th on Netflix, and I did as much research as I possibly could. And I'm going to share with you what I learned. So that year of research led to 4 major lessons. The first, which was brutal, is my friends who were black and Latinx and women said, Ryan, we don't trust you. We don't trust anybody in tech. We don't trust you because you're white. We don't trust you because you're a man. You know, we are not going to apply for your jobs. So even though you have jobs, we're not going to apply. And there's even a deeper problem, which is my community doesn't even know that these jobs exist. We're not talking about tech because we don't see people like us succeeding. So that was a big punch in the face that even though we thought we were inclusive and helpful, it didn't mean that we had the trust of the community. So the first thing we did is we went to the Boys and Girls Club. So we went to the local Boys and Girls Club in Portland, Oregon, and said, we want to invest in your community. We believe in your community. This is not charity. This is not a handout. We need you. And we want to invest in you, and we want to hire you as an apprentice. And once we built that trust with the Boys and Girls Club, then they would tell that message to their community. And that was huge. So that was lesson 1. You can't just say that you have jobs open and expect people to apply. Number 2 is that if your family is making an average income of $39,000 in America, which is the median family income for black families, you are not going to go to a coding boot camp. It's ridiculous to think that you would have $15,000 in 3 months to take off to learn how to code. It's not realistic that you're going to get a computer science degree because you are just taking care of your family. So thankfully, we could supply the second part of this. So we're an online school. We're actually really good at that. We've been working 8 years to get really good at that, so we could be that middle part, that school. I'm going to show you actually what this looks like in graphic form. So if you look at that first part, that's a community-based organization on the left. Then the second thing, which thankfully we can provide, is a self-paced online school that you can do while your kids are sleeping. So essentially there needed to be a learning solution that could be done 2 hours a day while your kids are sleeping, or while you're on break, or in the morning. So we used our own curriculum for that. There was a kind of a second part to that lesson, which is a lot of exploited, underrepresented communities don't have laptops at home, they don't have broadband. So we had to partner with Comcast to have them provide those two things for all the participants. And keep in mind, this is all free for the participants. There's zero cost. This is being funded by the employer, which was us. Just raise your hand if you're kind of tracking with me. Raise your hand if this is kind of making sense. Okay, good. I just want to make sure I'm with you. So that was lesson 2. Lesson 1 was we have to go through a community-based organization to gain the trust. Lesson 2, we had to make the learning accessible in people's free time, and that lasted 6 months. And then the third part was apprenticeship. So we needed a way to hire people without computer science degrees and get them to our normal entry level. So at Treehouse we hire entry-level computer science grads, we call them software engineer level 1. And most companies do this. They have an SE1, they understand how to do that. No one understands how to hire SE0. Someone that doesn't have a computer science degree, someone that doesn't have experience. So you have to build that. We call it apprenticeship, but really it's just getting someone from SE0 to SE1 repeatedly, reliably, effectively. So that's apprenticeship. It involves mentorship, which is that circle you see on the right. We have mentors from the company support the apprentices. We do weekly check-ins. We do often daily check-ins. It's a systematic program, right? So that was the third lesson. So first one is community-based organization to build trust. Second is an online curriculum that people can do when their kids are sleeping. Third is apprenticeship and mentorship. But there's a fourth lesson, which was really brutal, which is that we were not inclusive as a company. So I didn't realize that Treehouse, like most tech companies, has a white male culture. So it's invisible to me because I'm a white male. But what is actually real is that it's a very real thing. And if you're Black or Latinx, or you're a woman, or if you're transgender or non-binary, you won't want to work in a place like that. And that's not news to a lot of you who are women or people of color, but it was news to me as a privileged white male. So what we had to do is we had to train ourselves to get more inclusive, and that was really hard. We started reading books, we started having conversations, we started diving into data, and we slowly made ourselves more inclusive. So that was the fourth lesson. We had to figure out how to become more inclusive. And most importantly, the mentors had to be inclusive, because we're mostly white males, so trying to mentor an underrepresented developer is going to be not nice for them. So those are the 4 big pieces, and we worked on this for a year. And what happened is it worked. It was amazing. We got an amazing group of Latinx individuals that came out of the Boys and Girls Club. They were hired at Treehouse as apprentices. I was also able to get Nike and Envision to hire out of that cohort. And it worked. And I think as soon as we realized this system works, then maybe it could be plugged into other companies. So what we did is, I went to my friends at MailChimp and I said, I know that you care about diversity and inclusion and equity. I know you want to systematically do something about it. Why don't you try to plug this system in? And I didn't know, what they would say or what would happen, and they said yes. They said, we really, really want to do that. And so they are in Atlanta, and so what we did is we partnered with the Boys and Girls Club in Atlanta. And this is kind of the hidden 5th lesson behind all this, is that there is no shortage of talent at all. Talent is literally everywhere. In fact, there's so much talent, it's almost overwhelming. The problem is that we haven't opened the door. The door is not open, right? So in Atlanta, this is an amazing, I'm being dumb in the back, you can see me cheering. This group is amazing. I personally met them. They're some of the most dynamic, gritty, wonderful people I've ever met, and they had no idea they could be developers. So what's going to happen is they're going to become developers, and then they're going to start telling their friends that MailChimp is inclusive and believes in them and is hiring and supporting and investing in the community, and then that cycle is going to keep going. So we've already started recruiting for class cohort number 2 in Atlanta. We had 65 applicants for 10 spaces. There is no shortage of talent, right? We just needed to open a new door. So I want this to be a message of hope that there is something we can do about this. It does, if you want to talk about the kind of raw, brutal profit numbers, yes, your company is going to be more profitable if you have a diverse team, because a diverse team is going to create a product that matches your customers. A diverse team is going to retain longer and stay, and everything is good about having a diverse team. It's what's America is supposed to be, right? So profit will come with that, but the best thing is that you create a culture that is truly inclusive. So it was a big, big learning lesson. I want to share that story with you and walk you through it and how it works. We are now partnering with Dress for Success, so we can specifically invest in women. And we're now, there's an amazing group of women that are going into Acquia in Portland, Oregon, and they're the most amazing group you've ever met. They range from age 27 to 57. There's various levels of ability in that group, and they're wonderful. So it just turns out that the talent is there, you just have to go and you have to build trust with the community. So that's about all I've got to say. I just want to encourage you that systems like this can work. All you have to do is say yes. If you want to turn into a product for us, it's called Talent Path. And I didn't mean for that to happen, but the demand is off the charts, and we're truly changing people's lives, and it's really exciting. If you want to get in touch, I won't try to pitch you on it. Just get in touch and I'll tell you how it works and maybe how you can do something similar at your company. So that's us. Treehouse, and if you want to know more, just head to that URL. I've got a couple minutes left for questions, if there is any. Otherwise, I'll get out of your hair. There's a question right there.
How you doing, Terrence Curry? So I'm curious, what is your vision for the future of this program, and more importantly, is the apprenticeship and the, say, job hiring only done out of Atlanta, or can you migrate to other cities?
So the beautiful thing about this program is it scales across America. So we're now scaling it to almost every major city in America. So what we do is we start with an employer first, because there has to be a real job at the end of this. You know, we're not going to go promise people anything unless there's a real job at the end of it. So now we're rolling out to Boston, Atlanta, San Jose, San Luis Obispo, Portland, and many more are going to come online. I'm hoping by the end of 2019 we'll be in every major city in America. So I'm really, really excited about it. So, any other questions before we go? Great. Listen, I appreciate your time and your attention. Please get in touch. I'm just Ryan Carson everywhere on Twitter and Instagram, and it's Ryan at Team Treehouse. We'd love to talk to you. Thanks so much. Take care.